Hey guys, what I got here is a '06 Infiniti G35X, and this this applies to this vehicle, and I believe some of the Nissan Z35 350 Z350. Anyway, engine removal, engine swap. That's the engine right there that's the one that's going in. That's the one that was removed. And what happens is the procedure, the I guess manufacturer procedure calls for us to remove the engine with the subframe and the transmission. That's not possible. I'm at home, don't have a lift. So looking up YouTube, I saw guys removing the engine and the transmission. I didn't want to do that. I'm not even sure how possible because this is the four-wheel drive. That's the propeller shaft right there, and that transfer case is pretty big, putting a lot of weight on the back of the transmission. So I wanted to remove the engine without removing the transmission. And just wanted to show you a few pointers. This is by no means a walkthrough. Obviously, it's already done, but I did remove the propeller shaft right there. One, two, three, four. Those four bolts I got from up top, just leaning over the engine. I was able to get to those. This one was kind of a headache, but if I should do it again, maybe it would go easier. The rest of the bolts I got from under the, on my back under the vehicle. What else? The motor mounts are busted up. So I will be replacing those. Those are the replacements there. For the torque converter bolts, I do have a half-inch impact, and I just went through right along the subframe here. You see that between the stabilizer bar and the subframe, with a swivel socket, and I was able to impact those out. Just turning the engine, obviously. And with the four-wheel drive, the differential is bolted up against the engine. In fact, removing the engine, the differential comes with it. But the axle for these, the CV axle runs through the oil pan on these engines, so you do have to remove those CV axles, which is why I've got the wheels off, as you can see. But yes, you do have to remove the CV axles in order to remove this engine. That's my point. Is really just the fact that you can remove this without the transmission. The fact that you can reach those bolts from just leaning over the engine, and that's it really. But I just wanted to show you guys that step. And what I'm about to do is swap over wire harness. I've already stripped that engine for the most part, so I want to swap over wire harness and all that, prep this engine, get the differential, the front differential on this replacement engine. And at that point now I'll drop it back in, just setting it on the motor mounts that I'll put in first, and lining up the flange there on the catalytic converter, the flanges, and lining up the transmission. I don't think it should be too much of a headache going back. I should mention, as far as the wiring harness, which came out with the engine, you can see a connector back there, right there for the transmission, and then there's another one on the transfer case way back. You do have to unplug those, and then they're anchored against the transmission, so undo those clips and just pull the wire out. They're kind of a headache to get to with that propeller shaft in the way, but obviously it's possible. I removed mine, and then the wiring harness coming down this way, I think that went down to the starter and maybe something else, but you'll see that there's some sensors and all that. But you unplug those, and the wiring harness comes out with the engine from the computer, the ECM and all that. I unplugged it right up there, removing this thing. And, I was able to get to that and pull the engine out. So, you know, it's not rocket science, obviously, but you know, I've never done an engine like this before, so it was kind of fun to work on. It was something different. So I'm just looking forward to putting this engine back in and cranking this thing up and getting it out of here. I don't think I'll be doing a follow-up video, but hey, thanks guys for watching. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below and I'll try getting to those. Aside from that, be good, stay safe. Thanks.